Yo, what is up, everybody? Chris here from Fake Sports News, Axe Rotation, however the flip you know me in these interwebs. And today I'm going to be bringing you guys a quick preview of what to expect going into Week 3 of Stage 3 of the CDL, going into DreamHack Atlanta and my hometown of Atlanta, Georgia. Now, we are going to be starting off this week with a color-coded match. Speaking of Atlanta, speaking of peaches, speaking of the peach state, the state that grew your boy. You know what I'm saying? Grew in that soil, as they say. So, we're kicking things off with a neighboring state, Florida, Miami, taking on Riyadh, team from across the pond, if you will. And yeah, I'm thinking this one should be pretty interesting. The Miami Heretics, as we all know, they have some massive egg on their face after taking a really surprising 3-0 loss to G2 Minnesota. We all kind of got whiplash from that one, right? You turn your head 2 times, all of a sudden Miami's sitting there talking about, I'm new, bro. So it is what it is. Got the cheeks taken in record time. But I think this week, I don't know. Riyadh, they're a solid team, but Miami, they have definitely passed some fraud checks recently. Of course, Minor 2. Minor 1. It would have been Minor 2 if it was last year. They passed all of the fraud checks that we had put in place for them, at least online. We'll see how they do on land, but they finally toppled the mates. They beat Faze again. I like this Miami team. The way that Riyadh plays, let's think about this and forecast a little bit. Riyadh is a pretty slow, methodical team. Miami's a very fast-paced team. From what they were saying in the interview, Faze is a pretty slow team. Mates are also a pretty slow team. Let's think about this critically. They lost to Thieves. Thieves are another pretty fast team. Riyadh, they're pretty slow. I'm going to say Miami take this just because I'm thinking a little bit differently about all these series now that we've seen so many played on the season, over 200 plus series. I've clipped every single one. That's why I know how many there are. Optic Texas taking on the Mates. I think this is going to be an Optic Texas win, but I think the Mates are going to show some very steady improvement here. I think it'll be a pretty close series, but I think Optic Texas, all things considered, should walk away with this one pretty easily, relatively speaking, right? Speaking of people walking away with it pretty easily, relatively speaking, we have Joe Deceives and Kips taking on Nero and Gwyn. So, personally, I'm expecting Toronto to walk away with this one pretty effortlessly. Joe Deceives, as we know, he was plus 37 in his series against Optic Texas, I believe. 129 kills, 92 deaths, I think it was. Yeah, that's exactly what it was. Look at my memory going to work. So, yeah, I think Joseph Deceives, I think he will be deceiving them with the belief that they could win this series, but I think all they'll end up with is probably an S&D win. Maybe an overload. We'll say an overload. But Koi's pretty good overload, so I'll say S&D is probably their weakest mode, probably the best chance for Surge to take one. Obviously, very S&D-minded team, Lunars, Tej, Gwyn, and Nero, so not that insane. Speaking of not that insane, what I think will be not that insane ultimately is how tight Carolina Royal Ravens actually end up playing the Thieves in this series. I think even though they matched up very well with Faze, I think Carolina against teams like LA Thieves are a little bit more fast-paced. I feel like it'll be a pretty decently close matchup, probably 250 to 200 range for the hard points, maybe 6-4 in the S&D, and then overload I'd say probably about 6-4, maybe 5-4. I think it'll be pretty close in each map just because Carolina's right there. They're on the precipice of breaking out and becoming a very solid team in this league. But I do think LA Thieves are just a step ahead right now. Speaking of teams that are just a step ahead, I feel like FaZe in this new map set, they're on shaky ground at the moment. We haven't seen anything from them thus far in the qualifiers that says that they are as dominant as they were when we saw them in Major 2. Very close series win against Falcons. Obviously 3-0 the Breach, but that's a freebie. At Minor 2, They got fried by Miami Heretics. They beat the Falcons again, of course. Got absolutely dumpstered by Miami. Looked hopeless. And then last week when they played Miami, they looked absolutely hopeless. So, not sure. And also when they played Ravens, Ravens played them quite tight. So with that in mind, I'm going to bank on a Game 5. I feel like Faze probably shows up a little bit differently this weekend, especially since they match up quite well against Optic in this game, it seems. But I think Optic Texas, I think they're just going to have too much firepower. I don't think this meta is really favorable for Faze right now. It seems like Draza and Abuza are just like not performing to their usual standards. I think they have some things that they need to figure out during this NPC meta in terms of how they want to play. Draza being an additional NPC on the map, and really just how they want to play Abuza around this new NPC meta, with the M15 being not as impactful as it used to be, right? It's still very impactful, but it's decidedly not what it was in stages 1 and 2. So, speaking of people who are not what they were in stages 1 and 2, we have G2 Minnesota, a team who has been all over the place as of late, taking on the Boston Breach, another team who has also been similarly all over the place as of late. As you guys can see, the last meeting between these teams went the way of G2, to the surprise of no one, to the chagrin of Boston Breach. I think it'll be more of the same. I feel like what we've seen from G2, at least recently, has been very, very good against teams of this caliber. Of course, that being like, let's say, the C/D tier bottom rung of the league. Miami's been doing very, very well against the A tier teams like G2's been doing very well against the A tier teams like Miami Heretics. You can see Miami was on the brain. And yeah, I mean, I like what I've seen out of G2 as of late. I feel like they've been playing much better. I feel like they've corrected a lot of the mistakes that we saw starting to rear their ugly head at the start of the stage. Obviously, you guys can see they got 3-0'd by Surge. And then later in that week, they also lost to the Gentlemates in pretty embarrassing fashion. But they've been definitely turning things around. It seems like their practice has become more productive, and it has been leading to better match day results. Estral did say that in the interview as well. He said the practice has been really translating to much better results, but he's said in some of the previous interviews that G2 just comes out a little bit flat certain days and match days. So it's really just a coin toss with this team. You don't know who's... As I drop my phone. Yikes. Trying to be too cool. You don't know who's going to show up for this G2 side. I feel like Kremp and Astral will probably show up in this series. Mamba's been contributing very much so in the last couple weeks. Smart on Boston Breach has been having some very rough series, so that's something to watch when you look at this series. Afro's been performing to his best ability. Nasty's been nasty, no pun intended. And yeah, I mean, Purge has been stepping up. So if Spark gives you a more competitive series, you would have to like Boston's chances to upset and definitely to hang in this series, because that roster comp, while it's not the best, it's definitely not as bad as it could have been, and it looks much better than it was with Snoop. So, speaking of roster comps that look much better, Cloud9 is not that. So, I'm going to say Falcons 3-0 here. I think especially if things go the way I think they will in the Miami series, I'm going to say it's a 3-2 in Miami series. But I think if the Falcons play Miami pretty close and they lose, I think they'll definitely come into the C9 series and upset and own them. I think they'll just, make sure the map set for this one is really just favorable for them. C9 has shown that they definitely have the potential to take teams deep, like they did with G2 last week on that Den HP that was 250 at 247. I mean, yeah, like C9 is definitely showing up to a degree. Like, you look at this. Wait, where's the... I'm sorry, the Royal Raven series, 250 at 247. So yeah, I think 3-0 for Falcons, not going to overtalk that. Mates versus Miami. I think this is a major 2 callback that... Actually, let's look at the stats, guys. Let's look at the stats, because I got absolutely rinsed last week backing the Faze side against Miami. So let's not do that again. So how did this go down? Pretty close. 236, 250, 6-3, 4-3, 250, 203. Okay. So you run it back, and I think mates win this. Overload was very close. Way better, way more encouraging than what we saw from Faze. So I'm going to say mates get their lick back in the hard points. I think that's how they get it done. Um, I could see them splitting. Like, let's say Miami take one hard point, Mates take the other one, Miami take the overload, or Miami take the S&D, Mates take the overload. Yeah, let's say five, because I realistically see them splitting something. I see them splitting either the HPs and someone takes both S&Ds, or like let's say Miami wins map 1, they win map 3, Mates win 2, 3, and 4. I'm sorry, 2, 3, 5. I'm sorry, 2, 4, 5. I think Mates probably win 1, 4, 5 if I had to guess. I think 2, 3 go to Miami, but 1, 4, 5 go to Mates based on how the vetoes went last series. Or I could also see 2, 4, and 5 going to Mates. I could see that being the case. Or Dirty Neslo, 2, 3, 5. So, anyways, I think it's a mate win. I think that these guys will be trading places in terms of the series wins, right? Like I think with Faze, I think it's just a matchup thing. Now that we've seen 3 different instances of these teams going head to head, I think Faze just does not match up well against these guys. We've seen Mates and Miami play multiple times this season, and it's been back and forth, but Mates have a 3-1 advantage so far. So you see they played in January, Mates took both the hard points presumably. They played in February, Mates presumably took both the hard points. Played again in March, Mates presumably took both the hard points here as well. And then they played in April and something changed. So let's go through and actually look at each instance of Miami playing Paris, right? So you had Mates taking the hard point. They took the, okay, so hard point, dominant hard point, close overload. Let's look at the other one. It was in March. Close HP, dominant S&D from the Miami side. Close overload, close HP again. Okay. Close HP. Miami takes S&D as per usual. Close overload and HP blowout. So, alright. So it's gone back and forth. Close. Close, close. Okay, so the overloads are very consistent. It's always 4-3 or 2-1, pretty much. And the hard points are usually about 50 to 80 points in terms of the margin of separation. So close series each time, but Mates have the upper hand. As you guys can see, they're 3-1 on the season. So I'm going to say Game 5 just because Miami's improved. I feel like it's going to be a different outcome this time, but ever so slightly. Speaking of ever so slightly different outcomes, this time I think the LA Thieves, god damn, 5-0 in their last 5 times played. And yeah, they in March, wow, they played every week in March, damn near. They played 3 times in March. Oh, 2025. Okay. So dude, okay, I had completely read this wrong. All right, so they played 3 times this year. All right, so the 21st, the 28th, and April 25th. Bear with me, guys. It has been a long day. I record these videos after like full day of like working, so it's never me at my best. But as you guys can see, not close on the LA Thieves side. Blowout. See the 28th. Was it any closer? Nope. Belt to ass. Looking like the 76ers. Taking straight belt to the ass cheeks. Closer. More encouraging. Gone. Okay. All right. So we're going to say LA Thieves 3-1. Give ourselves a little bit of cushion. G2 has been in weird form, but they've beat some good teams, so we'll just give ourselves a little bit of baby cushion, say 3-1. So, we're ending the week on a note. It's not a high note, it is a note. Not sure if this is D flat, G sharp, minor, major chord. Not sure what kind of chord progression we got here, but I think this is definitely the sad chord progression. So, yeah, that'll just about wrap it up for me, guys. I think it'll be a 3-0 for Joe Deceives, Kips, and Co. And I think C9 go back to the lobby with a lot to think about and things to consider going into Major 3. So, yeah, I hope you guys enjoy May 10th. the last day of Stage 3 quals going into Major 3. And yeah, I'll catch you guys on the next one. Tomorrow I'm going to be doing probably a breakdown of the two S&Ds between Faze and Carolina, just to see what the hell is going on with our Major 2 champs. So yeah, guys, that's about wrap it up for me. Hope you have a great morning, noon, or night. Like I always say, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, share with someone who you think might enjoy this. And once again, this is Chris from Fakes for News X Rotation. However, the flip, you know, these interwebs, and I will see you guys on the next one. Peace.